You know, when we think about ancient empires, what comes to mind? Probably giant armies, epic battles, and powerful kings on golden thrones, right? But what if I told you that's only half the story? The real secret to their power was something much quieter and honestly a lot more revolutionary.
Because here's the thing, empires don't just run on victory, they run on information. The real power wasn't only in the spear that conquered the land, but in the stylus that recorded it. The true engine room of the empire was the quiet, meticulous work of scribes turning messy reality into neat, organized records. To really see this in action, we need to go way back. We're talking over 4,000 years ago to ancient Mesopotamia. And we need to meet the man who first figured out how to use this new kind of power, Sargon of Akkad. Before Sargon, Mesopotamia was basically just a patchwork of squabbling city-states. But he did something nobody had ever pulled off before. He conquered them all and brought them together under one single rule. He created one of the world's first true empires. I mean, this was a massive achievement. But here's the twist. Sargon's greatest success immediately created his biggest problem. Sure, he'd won all this territory, but how on earth was he supposed to actually control it all? This slide really shows the problem he'd made for himself. For centuries, you had all these small, independent cities. Then, bam, Sargon creates this huge, unified empire. The old ways of ruling, based on who knows who and what people remembered, totally obsolete. So really, put yourself in his shoes. You've got vast stretches of farmland, dozens of towns, thousands of people who've never answered to a central king before. How do you even know what you have? How do you manage it? And most importantly, how do you make it all work for you? The solution wasn't more soldiers or bigger walls, nope. It was a deceptively simple but absolutely brilliant tool for organizing reality, the administrative map, scratched right onto a humble clay tablet. Now, when I say map, I need you to forget about the kind of map you'd use for a road trip. These ancient maps had a totally different purpose. They weren't for getting around, they were for control. Their job was to take a messy, physical landscape and make it neat, orderly, and most of all, understandable to some officials sitting in an office miles away. So what were they recording? Oh, all the important stuff. For every single plot of land, a scribe would note its exact size, its boundaries, like a canal or maybe a specific tree, who owned it, who worked on it, how good it was for growing crops, and of course, the most important detail of all, exactly how much tax was owed. This quote just nails the shift perfectly. A field was no longer just, the land over by the big canal. It wasn't based on what your grandfather remembered. This new system took that vague idea and turned it into a concrete, official, and undeniable record. And all of this careful, painstaking record-keeping, well, it all had one ultimate purpose, turning all that conquered land into cold, hard revenue for the state. I know, taxation sounds kind of dull, but it is literally the lifeblood of any organized government. Without a steady stream of resources, you can't pay your army, you can't build palaces or canals, you can't support the whole administration you need to run an empire. The whole thing just grinds to a halt. And they had this down to a science. It was a 4-step process, a playbook. First, officials would go out and survey the land, measuring it all out. Second, scribes would record all those vital details on the clay tablets. Third, the state would assess the land's value and figure out the tax. And finally, step 4, collection. It was a systematic, repeatable process that fueled the entire empire.
But the benefits went way beyond just revenue. This system created order. It made the entire landscape legible to the central government. And think about this, with official records, the state now became the ultimate referee in any disputes over land. That's a huge source of power. So all of this builds to a pretty profound conclusion. This wasn't just some clever new way to collect taxes. It was a completely new way of thinking about power itself. This comparison just says it all, doesn't it? The spear is the tool of conquest. It's how you take territory. But the stylus, the scribe's tool, that's how you control that territory. One gives you temporary power through force, the other creates lasting, enduring power through information. It really all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. Anybody with a big enough army can win a piece of land. But keeping it, ruling it, making it productive for generations to come, that takes administration. And make no mistake, this was a quiet but total political revolution.
It was the moment government learned how to turn physical geography, actual land, rivers, trees, into an abstract system of information that could be managed and controlled from a central point.
And this kind of forces us to rethink what civilization even is. It's not just the big, flashy monuments and the famous kings we learn about. It's also these invisible, intelligent systems of organization, the surveyors, the scribes, the records, the quiet work that allows huge, complex societies to actually function. So let's leave it with this. 4,000 years ago, a scribe turned a physical field into a set of data points on a piece of clay so the state could better control it. That leaves us with a pretty big question today. What parts of our own world and our own lives are being mapped into data right now, and for what purpose?